significantly. The external debt is about $155 billion. They are growing 1.7% a year, and therefore they cannot feed the mouses that are born there every year. So we think this can be arranged in a way that the international community will help the Egyptians with their internal problems, while Egypt is helping the international community and the Palestinians by taking Gaza to be managed for a limited period of time. This is the solution I've offered. I'm still discussing this with others. Now, ridiculously enough, I've discussed it with the Americans, with the European Unions, with you a little bit, even with the Egyptians. The only body I didn't discuss it with is our own beloved government for reasons of mutual dislike.
And under what conditions would Palestinians themselves be, in your view, able to run the Gaza or the West Bank?
When you just have to clarify for me, when you're saying Palestinians, which Palestinians? Because there's the Palestinian Authority, there's Hamas, there's Islamic Jihad, there's so many bodies who are calling themselves the real representatives of the Palestinians.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. Under what conditions would you see the recognition of a Palestinian state where the Palestinian Authority would be the ruling body? Under what conditions would you see this?
Well, you know, it's tragic. When I was prime minister, I gave a speech in the United Nations General Assembly, which is the biggest stage on earth, and against the advice of every person in his right mind, I've declared the fact that I am a supporter of the two-state solution. But tragically, this is has been postponed significantly after October 7th, because fear has become a factor of any way we're looking at it, making sure, I mean, in order to discuss the two-state solution, the Palestinians have to prove to us now that this doesn't become another failing terror state that will be the base of the next attack against the Israeli people, against the innocent, the women and children that were attacked on October 7th. So fear, suspicion, and human tragedy, unfortunately, I think has pushed back the idea of the two-state solution. We need not to give hope on the future possibility of peace between our peoples, because this is the right thing. Two major things happened to me in the last year. One is this war, and the other is I have my first granddaughter, and I wish for her that in her future there is peace between those two people, two agonizing, suffering peoples.
Thank you, Chair.
Very good. Blair.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Lapid. I think it's a matter of regret for us that the Israeli government haven't been willing to talk to us, so we thank you for coming before us. Can I go back to something you said a moment ago about it's for the Israeli voters to decide? Unfortunately, I think people in Gaza can't wait that long. You this morning called again for the end to the war in Gaza. You've called for that many times. You've offered Netanyahu political cover for that. You've urged him to distance himself from extremists like Smotrich and Ben Gvir. What needs to change before any election and change of leadership for Netanyahu to answer that call to end things in Gaza, to do a deal, to bring home the hostages and to stop the killing?
Well, the reason I've said it again this morning is because I said, well, he didn't want to do it while he was still trying to regain his political power after the tragedy of October 7th, that his name is written all over it. Now that he's on top after a very successful operation in Iran, he might change he might understand or relate to the idea that this is the right thing for the country. And you know what? It is also something that will be extremely popular to the people of Israel. So as you do in the opposition, you have the right idea and you push it, trying to make sure that in the moment it will become relevant, you'll be out there with the right call. So this is what we were trying to do. I think we have a better chance today for an agreement in Gaza, for which of course has to start with returning our hostages, than we had 12 days ago before the operation in Iran. I will discuss this, of course, with the Prime Minister and with the coalition in the future, not weeks but days.
And to go back to your original premise, I represent a very large Jewish community, and many of them have been obviously deeply traumatized by the pogrom on October 7th, but also deeply shocked by everything that's followed as well, and they worry deeply that Israel's international reputation has been deeply damaged by what's happened, not just in Gaza, but what's happening in the West Bank as well with settler violence. If you were Prime Minister tomorrow, what would change? What would change in terms of humanitarian access in Gaza, in terms of challenging the violence in the West Bank?
First of all, if I may use the example that is in front of me, one of the things I would have changed is you've said that the government refused to talk to you, and you thank me for being here. If I was the Prime Minister, I would have talked to you and the government would have talked to you. The Israeli government was way too busy in victimizing themselves instead of explaining to the world what is it that we do and what kind of enemy are we facing and what are the circumstances that leads to the tragedy in Gaza. And I'll tell you something more. They have neglected their duty, not only as a government, but also as human beings. And you've mentioned the Jewish congregation in your area. This is also has to do with Jewish morals, to say we are sorry for the loss of life in Gaza. We are sorry for every child that has died in Gaza. Children should not die in grown-ups' wars. And we're going to do our best in order to prevent this. And when it doesn't succeed, because we are fighting a horrible enemy in a very dense populated area, that is using his own children as human shield. But when it happens, we are so sorry about this, and our heart goes out for them, and we have to make sure we find ways to be helpful to them. And the reasons that our government has neglected their duty to say so is cynical and political in ways that I find hard to not only to relate to, but to forgive. You see, I tried not to attack my own government in the British Parliament, and couldn't do it because this is so emotional for us all. So this is one. And two, I would finalize a deal in Gaza a year ago. There's no reason on earth this is going on for 620 some days. Not to mention the fact that we are an island economy based on high tech, with an army that is based on the model of reserves, and therefore